Welcome back. Well, in the last episode, we mounted this Frankford Arsenal X-10 progressive reloading press to the bench. Solid as it is. It's unbelievable. Now, this morning, I went to the post office and I found these waiting for me. These are two Frankford Arsenal X-10 shell plates. Let's take a look inside. I got the shell plate number 2, which is for, actually the number 2 is a kind of a universal shell holder number indicating 30-06 head sizes, 8mm Mauser, 45 ACP, 308, all those, 243 Winchester, anything with that size head, that's the number 2. I also got the number 4 plate, which is for 223 Remington, B222 Remington, 222 Remington Magnum, 204 Ruger, 300 Blackout, et al. So, I've decided that I want to load up a lot of 308s, and so I'm going to install shell plate number 2. But let's take a look and see what's inside this box together. I'll tell you what. I mean, the box alone is inspiring. This is nice. This is nice packaging. This is not just your average box. Let's see. Here we go. It's even in its own. Frankford Arsenal likes to put things in these storage boxes. Isn't that nice? Beautiful storage. And that's the way they did it with the accessories that came with the press. So it's nice that they do things in deluxe style. This is not just a cardboard throwaway box. Oh, I mean, this is like uncovering a Harley Davidson part. To say that this is a shell plate is a little bit of a understatement. I mean, look at the box, the detailing just in the box itself. Can you see that? I mean, it's all nicely made, fabricated. To say that this is a shell plate is really an understatement. This is an entire assembly. I mean, I can show you a shell plate. This is a shell plate. That's from my Loadmaster, Lee Loadmaster, and that served me very, very well over the years. But I wanted to work up to something that was certainly more suited to handling larger cases with less effort and moving the assembly of ammunition along. But this is all ball bearings. I mean, that's nice. That's not going to be riding, bearing on friction surfaces. There's not going to be any grease involved with that. It's all chrome steel. I mean, that's gorgeous. Nicely finished and polished. That really is an impressive piece of machinery. There's a lot there for the money, and these are heavily discounted. I got these for $75 a piece, I think, and I mean, for what you're getting, that's an incredible piece of machinery. So let's come over to the bench and we'll take this apart and put that on it, and we're going to convert over this press from its factory default of small cases, such as the small primer pocket cases, such as the 223. So let's get at it. So our very first step is to convert this from its default parts for a small primer cases. So I'm going to take off the head first and remove this cap screw. Now this head has been off before, and it came off without any difficulty. But if you have a head which is stubborn and doesn't want to come off right away, you can place 2 wooden blocks underneath here, one on each side, and just simply rotate the handle down, and that leverage will take it right off. And as you can see, just as a matter of fact, doing that, once it encountered the resistance here, it just came off. So I'm taking a closer look at this now. You know, there's a lot of work in here. This is the light assembly, it looks like. There's some, I see computer chips in there. I imagine that's LED lighting. Self-lubricating bronze bushing in here for that rides up and down on this shaft. Everything is nicely detailed. So we'll set that aside. And this, by the way, is the factory installed die that applies pressure over your swaging pin inside the case. This side here on the operating handle side consists of two side plates, and the top one is the access plate for the two pins, one pin being for the swaging, which is optional. You don't have to swage if you don't have military cases at all. You can forego that step, and you can use that particular hole in the head for another operation, whatever you want to do. Inside here now we've got this is the priming pin right here, and this is the swaging pin right here. So we'll back these jam nuts down. Looks like they have to come up straight through the hole. We've got that, and you can see it's marked right on the side, prime, and it's also marked small. So that's a good feature. You don't have to guess what you're handling. Do the same with this one, back it off. So I'm just going to wipe off the excess here. I don't need all that oil on there. I'm just going to put these aside. You really can't wipe off all oil unless you use a degreaser. So that, for my conditions, that's sufficient to store them. Now we'll take out our first accessory box. Which one is which? There we go. And there we go. We have some other parts too, but here's the large primer pocket swager, and here's the large primer pocket primer. So we're going to take those, wipe those down a little bit. There's no lubrication issue here whatsoever. This is strictly for preservation. So I'm going to place this one into the swage side, which is right straight down here, and apply the, you can see right here, this is a flanged locking nut, and that just simply threads on. So just simply place your finger down there and run this pin in until you can feel it flush, and I would say that that's close enough until we make a final adjustment. So the immediate suggestion is to kind of schedule your operations, because this is a little bit more tedious than you'd want to do every single time that you change cartridges. So I would say schedule your operations wisely so that you're doing all your large primers at one time and doing all your small primers at another time in different calibers. So that would be the smart thing to do. We'll take a 3mm Allen wrench and unwind these screws. Just be sure you have your wrench always solidly into those screw heads so you don't strip them. This is not a standard screw you're going to find everywhere. I'm sure the parts are readily available from Frankford Arsenal, but you don't want to ruin them unnecessarily. These should last for 3 lifetimes if they're cared for. Yeah. This is the retention ring that holds the shell plate into position. Okay. Take it all out together. It's easy enough. I'm going to install this shell plate number 2, and as I say, that's a very modest term for what you're getting here. I see an awful lot of lubricant down there. I'm going to remove much of that. Heavy lubricants and powder don't mix. It creates a real serious issue with. There's going to be more than enough. This is a packing lubricant. This is not operational. These surfaces here are not subject to friction that I'm wiping from. So I don't want everybody to get alarmed and think that I'm trying to run this thing dry. I'm not. But there's no point whatsoever in having powder attracting oils, massive quantities of that stuff, to impede the operation of the press by gathering particles. So the shell plate itself has its own ball bearings, and that's what does all the heavy lifting. So we've got to change out these pins. These pins are set up for, and it's rather a contradiction in term. The larger pins are for the for the small primer pocket cases, and the ones which are smaller in appearance are for the large primer pocket shell holders. So it's a little bit of a contradiction in terms. So we'll take those out. I'll need a screwdriver. So I need 2 tools to remove these pins. First of all, it looks like a maybe a 3/32. I'm not sure what size that is, but that's the second to the smallest wrench that the Allen wrench which came with the kit. And this is a rather husky screwdriver blade here. And unwind these. So again, this is only something you're going to do on those occasions where you're changing over calibers. And I'll leave that wrench right where it belongs. Forego tightening all these until you just go around and do them all at once. But I'll tighten that up pretty good. And we'll move on to the next one. So I'm going to continue along off camera and swap out these pins, and we'll get back and we'll start putting that shell plate in. I just want to show you that screw. It's a shouldered cap screw. This is not something that you're going to buy in the hardware store, so be very careful when you're inserting your Allen wrench. Make sure you have it seated fully into its pocket so that you don't strip that. Otherwise you'd be calling Frankford Arsenal to get a replacement. So that's what it looks like. That goes straight down. We need to move this. We need to move this cam out of the way. So that's easy enough to do. As we lower this down, just press it out of the way with your finger, and there we go. And that seats itself very nicely. I'm going to make the drastic assumption that this was factory adjusted properly. It does give instructions on how to adjust the indexing of this, and we'll go through that. We'll go through that and make sure that it is indexed correctly. I'm going to take off that excess lubricant from this retainer. You can see how it's all gunked up. and that's certainly not necessary. There's no friction parts here involved. This is only for storage. And by the way, I noticed when I had this side, the front plate off here, the plastic plate. This press was manufactured this month. I got this press halfway through the month. That means that it was manufactured merely days before I received it. So that's pretty impressive. It said 8/23. So we're going to place this down here, and there we go. I'll torque them all down afterwards. I don't like to, anytime you have a circular pattern of screws, whether it's a wheel hub or whatever it is, it's best to not torque them until you have all your screws in place. That way there you don't have canting of the assembly. And put them in crisscross order. So the next one I'll put in now is opposite this one. And right here. And the one opposite this one would be this one over here. So the changing out of calibers is very easy. The changing out of calibers simply means removing these there's five screws here and just lifting this plate out. And there are a couple of other parts that you have to change. As long as you're staying with the same, the same size primer pocket, you're all set. So now I'm going to torque these down, as I say, opposite one another, and I'm not going crazy. You know, these are small fine threads. So make sure you have your Allen wrench in tightly so you don't strip it out. If you want to apply a little bit more torque to them, you can always use a standard Allen wrench. It looks like it's perhaps this one here. But don't go nuts about it. When they stop turning, stop turning. That's always my strong recommendation. You know, more damage is done to machinery by over tightening than by under tightening. You can always go back and tighten things up, but that's plenty tight. And an Allen wrench, you know, is its own torque wrench because their size, the length of the shaft is sized appropriate to the diameter, and everything is scaled properly so that when you apply torque to this lever here, the amount of torque that's applied with fingers with reasonable pressure is automatically the correct torque. So you don't need to have a torque wrench. So I'm taking a look at that now for a moment and turn to my book and see what it says. The next step, we've done the. We want to make sure that now nothing is impinging on the up and down stroke here. Look at that, it turns that nicely. And they index and snap right into position with authority. There's a detent ball. Looks like it's about a 1/2 inch diameter detent ball right here. And like I say, that's snapping right into position. The two pins are coming up directly in between here. So it looks like the indexing is factory perfect. It feels so smooth, very, very nice. So what's the next step? Adjust the index mechanism. Well, it says here, with the ram raised to the top of the stroke, gently turn the shell plate clockwise by hand until it contacts the pawl of the index mechanism. Verify that the primer cutouts in the shell plate align with the swaging and priming pins and that the detent ball is fully engaged in the shell plate. That's all happening. If the swaging and priming pins do not align with the primer cutouts in the shell plate, use the included 4mm hex key to loosen the index advancing and locking screws on the front, blah, blah, blah. And it gives you full instructions on how to accomplish that task right here. But right now, it's indexing perfectly. Everything, the pins, the swaging and priming pins are coming up exactly dead center. That detent ball is snapping them into position exactly as they should be. And these case pins, these case retention pins have all been installed. So we're ready to go to the next position. Install the priming assembly. This is starting to get exciting now. Now the priming assembly has laser engraved on the gear itself, large primer. Very, very nice. Good. So it just simply, this flat machine surface, we're just simply sliding it straight in rather than pressing it down. It's just sliding straight in from the side. Everything is flush. When this is flush, you know that it's in. And we'll install these cap screws. So we'll wind down those screws. And again, we've got opposing screws here, so I'm going to tighten the diagonal one gently. It's a lot of thread-bearing surface, so there's a lot of, that's rugged. You know, all those little details tell me it's a nicely conceived machine. You know, they could have gone in with nothing more than a quarter of an inch of thread engagement, you know, 4 or 5 turns, and that would have held. But this tells me that they wanted this to be done right. So there's about I would say there's nearly 3/8 of an inch to almost a 1/2 inch of thread engagement. So I would avoid using power tools on this, running these in with a drill. You can do that, but a lot of damage could be done in a real hurry. You know, you've got some torque developed, even if you have a clutch on your drill. You've got some torque developed when that's spinning, and when it suddenly comes to a dead stop, things can break. It wouldn't be good to break one of these screws off. I see no need to get too ambitious with tightening here. These are holding screws. See that? I'm applying finger pressure, and you can see that shaft begin to bend. That's sufficient torque. That's an automatic torque wrench right there. You don't need to buy anything special. That's how Allen wrenches have been designed forever and ever. There's no need to go any harder than that. That's by itself, I'm amazed. That's no small plastic tube. That's a very heavy tube. So again, I'm impressed. Now at each step, I'm going to actuate things to be sure that you don't want to get 3 steps into the process and find out something's not working, then you don't know which one is causing it. So right now that's indexing beautifully. The priming gear is turning like a clock. The priming gear is turning clockwise as the shell plate assembly is turning counterclockwise. And it just feels so slick. Very, very nice. They're in there firmly. Spin it right out. This one's going to need a little bit of coaxing. Allen wrench did a nice job with that, loosening it up. Okay, so now we remove that, and so it just simply pops straight up, push it up from the bottom. It's a very, very snug fit. And I'll take the number 2 and place that inside. You can see it's got a retention hook right here, so that snaps into place. And down at the bottom, you can see the retention hook is right here. So when you press up against that hook right here with your finger, and that releases it and allows it to slide right out. That's all there is to it. So that latches right into place. And I'm taking a look at everything inside here. Okay, so we take the case plunger and remove that. Replace that from the kit with the number 2. Very nice. This is the case feed plunger. It's quite an amazing. This is really its own invention, because I don't see too many things here that correspond with any presses that I've seen heretofore. So there was a lot of thinking outside the box, and I applaud engineers who think outside the box. They're doing inventor's work. That's what John Browning was all about. And I don't want to tighten that down too much by hand, because I can tell that could splay that plastic. In fact, I'm going to follow my own admonishment, and I'm going to tighten it only with the Allen wrench. That way there I know for a fact that I'm not going too far. There's that one. And there's that one. There's absolutely no reason to tighten those down too tightly. So we've got that into position. Put that back in. Even the plastic parts are precise. This is no junk here. Very nice. And just with the strength of that wrench, when it starts to bend, that's it. Don't tighten it farther than that. There. You know, at this point, I think I'm going to remount the, reinstall the tool head. And I'll finish this video up with a second part as I install the remaining components. That would be the powder charger, and also, now when this goes in, again, this cam right here must go straight down into this slot. So make sure you guide that in the correct position, because that could do some serious damage if that, I mean, there's a lot of mass here. That could do some serious damage if you just dropped it into place. Now I know that that's not, I don't believe that's situated all the way down, but we're going to install the cap screw, the large cap screw. I'm going to wipe some of the lubricant, factory lubricant, shipping lubricant off of this cap screw. We certainly don't need that kind of oil floating around. You know, be guided by your own conditions. If you're in a very damp location, then, you know, allow lubricants to remain where it befits it. But at this point now, this looks like we can start calling this a reloading press pretty soon. When you feel that wrench come to a stop and it's sliding, that cap screw is sliding around under firm pressure and it no longer wants to move, that's it. You don't need to get a torque wrench out for that. That's when it stops moving, stop moving. When it stops turning, stop turning, and that's it. So that's 45 pounds. That's a good. That's certainly enough to hold that into place. That's never going to move. Again, we'll check operations, make sure that things are still functioning as they're supposed to, and use full return strokes. Never ever half stroke progressive press. That leads to all sorts of problems. Always fully engage it and fully return it. And if you have anything that binds, if you feel any resistance whatsoever, just stop. Stop right there. Do not apply any more pressure, because a lot of people are doing damage to these. I've heard a couple of people say, well, the press isn't working anymore. I was applying some pressure and I could feel there was a little bit of resistance, but I pulled it. Well, that's rather silly. If you feel a little bit of resistance that is not there before, you don't stop. You don't keep on pulling. You stop what you're doing, and you don't, because you got leverage here that's sufficient to size cases. To make cases from scratch. Any kind of force that has that kind of leverage is certainly enough leverage to bend intricate parts within this machine. So whenever you feel that resistance, stop what you're doing and identify the resistance and fix it before you go any farther. So as I say, I'm going to install the powder charging assembly and the case feeding assembly. They're probably going to take two separate videos. This encompassed quite a bit just in this one video to get the head back on. But anyway, we got the shell plate installed. All the things converted over from small primers to large primer situation. I don't want to disturb my buddy. He's snoozing down below here. So thank you to my Patreon donors. You've been terrific. You've been fabulous about helping me out so that I can get those shell plates. They were at a greatly reduced price from what their suggested retail is, but still, they're not cheap at all. They're $75 a piece is what I paid. So that's a considerable amount of layout that I wouldn't be able to handle without your help. So until the next episode, where we're going to be a little bit farther into this process, and we should be wrapping it up. I should be able to start loading ammo and turning that out very shortly. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and hit the little bell. God bless.